My name is Shrikant, head of product here at Albi. I come from the healthcare space. I've been doing AI in healthcare for almost a decade now, a little bit more than a decade, including graduate work. I have a Ph.D. in Biomedical Engineering from the University of Illinois, Chicago. And one of my biggest passions, the reason I'm here and the reason I really enjoy the work that I do here is I love solving problems. That's my number one thing. And I really enjoy being part of an industry where the problems are clearly there, and it just feels like nobody really wants to attack those problems, right? Restoration is one of those industries which is just fascinating. It's so many different moving pieces, and there are always a lot of limiting factors when it comes to having a technological solution in restoration. So what Albi is doing is very in line with what I want to be doing. And not to mention, our goals of adding AI into restoration, I think, are tremendous, and really excited to further that progress as well. And that'll just kind of tie me right back into what I've been doing for a very long time. So super excited to do this work. This is really a lot of fun for me. It's a great question. So I'm going to take you back to 2012. In 2012, I just finished my high school so I finished high school in 2010. In 2012, I was in my sophomore year, transitioning to a junior in undergrad at UIC. And around that same time, I saw some buzzing on the internet because I was one of those techie people. I was up at 2 in the morning, looking at websites, looking at like the new research that was going on. And I found that there were some new articles coming out about a very, very interesting new approach to image recognition. This was kind of the very earliest stage of this new generation of AI. So there have been 2 or 3 generations, we call them, of AI. One was in the 60s, and around the time of the first real computational revolution. There was obviously the 40s is when computers were really invented with ENIAC. In the 60s, there was a big programmatic revolution. In the 80s, it was revived again with the use of neurobiology to help design these kinds of AI, artificial intelligence systems. But it really didn't work because there wasn't the horsepower needed that we have today in these computers. Like, for example, the phone that I have here, this has probably 20,000 times the power of the Apollo, modules that took us to the moon, right? In this thing, right? And this is the kind of horsepower that you really need to make our current generation, 3rd generation of AI, really tick. And I think it was just a really interesting time and place to be looking into AI. Of course, sophomore in college, you really don't have much else to do, just do your schoolwork and stuff. So I was doing a lot of research on the side. Just so happened, 2 years later, I was approaching finishing my undergraduate degree, and my thesis advisor at the time, we had a capstone project to finish, and my advisor at the time was looking for grad students. And I didn't really have any plans after undergrad, and I didn't really want to look for a job yet because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Whatever the case, my advisor offered me a position. Instead of going to master's, he said, just do a PhD with me directly. This is what I want you to work on. I want you to solve this problem in surgery. So he was a urologist, urological surgeon, technically, and a fertility specialist. And in his field, one of the biggest complaints, or one of the biggest problems that patients were facing in fertility, male patients specifically, was males who've gone through chemotherapy for cancer treatment, or they have genetic conditions, they will not have a high enough sperm count to have children, right? So there was a big fertility problem there. And the procedure that they were using to solve this problem was basically extracting the sperm required for IVF. You needed over 20 years of experience to really be a good surgeon at that procedure. But it was all about identifying locations under a microscope. It was all visual. So we had the idea that what if a computer could do the same job as an expert trained urological surgeon and to identify locations for sampling. It was a crazy idea. Nobody had really thought about doing it. There were a lot of different ideas floating around at the time. This is again around 2016 or so. And we decided that, 4 years ago, this algorithm came out. Since then, there's been a little bit of movement, but it hasn't been tremendous. What if we use it to solve this problem? So I said, yeah, it sounds great. I proposed the experiment, I proposed the solution, proposed the problem, and it took 6.5 years of work to get from proposing a solution to actually developing a solution. Ended up being very successful at the task we wanted it to do. And in that whole time, I just kept getting more and more confidence that AI was going to be a world-changing thing long term, if it could be applied into such a niche aspect, right? A very human-centric, a human-centric action, identifying specific characteristics of an image under a microscope that takes 20 years to train a human to do, I can train a computer to do in an afternoon. That's massive. That's insane. And then having the computer outperform the human by 10 over an order of magnitude in terms of time, and being more accurate, like 40 to 50% of the time, 40 to 50% more accurate at the exact same job that person is trained 20 years to do, is insane. Right? And if you extend that to other trades, to other specializations, you realize very quickly that if this is applicable here, it can be applicable everywhere. So I became a huge, proponent for AI in everything, right? So I wanted to see how it could apply to everything. From there, I went into medical billing, where I did a lot of that same predictive work in medical billing. There's a lot of expectations for payment downstream, so we want to know where and when we're going to get paid for specific things. And so I applied predictive systems to that, and we started actually making good hits. We were identifying when claims were not going to get paid, when they will get paid, what exactly went wrong with the claims that are probably not going to get paid, and we'd have 15-day or more lead time over when we found out, for example, that the claim wasn't going to get paid. And this ties back into Albi. Obviously, we're doing a lot of restoration insurance claims. And there are a lot of things that are required by insurance to make sure these claims get paid. Well, how do you identify for each insurance what is most relevant, right? It takes data. It takes a ton of data. And if you are able to aggregate that data, you have a much better chance of identifying that the claim that you're about to submit for this project doesn't have the documentation required to get this paid first time. You may have to go through a bunch of other things, but if you knew about that beforehand, you could add those details in and not have to worry about it downstream. So this is really the advantage of having this kind of statistical modeling underneath all of the data that we have at Albi around restoration insurance claims and the projects that we have in-house. Well, personally, I'd never really thought I would move out of healthcare. It's just been such a deep part of my life. My wife is a cardiologist, so healthcare runs in my blood. A lot of my family are also doctors. I just never wanted to be a doctor myself, not a medical doctor at least, but I did want the DR in front of my name. So it's just like kind of an ego thing to go into grad school in that case. The reason I left healthcare was very much because I met Alex. I met Alex and I saw an opportunity to provide tremendous value in an industry that is very underserved, especially when it comes to AI. So it's underserved in general, but it's extremely barren when it comes to AI solutions for things. Restoration was a kind of blank slate for me to apply a lot of the things that I've learned in the last decade around AI into a very, very impactful arena that we can work in, and that was tremendously exciting. And then he said that not only will you be doing AI downstream, but there's also this whole other product that we have to deliver. And I didn't really know much about what product meant, right? But very quickly, this is exactly the kind of work I've always been doing. I've actually been doing product level work for a decade or more in the consulting that I've done with other groups. At UIC, we have what's called the Innovation Center, where we're basically engineering consultants for all of these other big labs or big companies that come in with problems. And myself and my colleague were consulting on all these projects. And what we were doing was fundamentally, we had to identify the problem that the company or the client was trying to solve at baseline. And if you don't have a good idea of what the problem is, there is no way you're going to get a good solution out of it. So identifying the problem was a core skill that I'd built up over a decade. It just so happens that here at Albi, one of the biggest things that we can identify in-house that we are good at and we are able to leverage better than I don't want to say other solutions in the market, but we're definitely able to leverage this better to provide value to our customers, is to actually go in and identify what is the root cause of the problem, what are you actually trying to solve, right? It is not just a new feature, it is not just a new app, it's not just a new report. You're trying to develop insight, right? If somebody asks me, for example, I need a new button to do this, I'm like, why do you need a new button? What is the point of the button? What are you trying to actually accomplish? And it turns out a majority of the time, the client needs a little bit of pushing to get to a point where they understand the root cause of the problem, so we can address the root cause of the problem. And that's what I really enjoy about this whole, like all of this work. So to go back to your question, why coming out of healthcare? There's way more opportunity to make an impact here than there is in healthcare. Healthcare has a lot more legalese in between R&D and development and deployment, right? Before I left healthcare, I worked on an AI system to identify the perfect doctor for you as the patient. Normally, what you have to do is you have to go into a search engine from your insurance or from the hospital that's nearby, and you tell them, do you want a cardiologist? Do you want a dermatologist? Do you want a orthopedic? But most people don't know what those words mean. They don't know what those specialties actually entail. What are they actually going to treat, right? So the system that I created, you would ask a question in natural language. You'd say, my fingers hurt. I have joint pain in this area, and I live in this area. Right? I have joint pain in my elbow and I live in Florida. And the system would identify doctors that treat your particular condition in your area, right? That's what the system was built for. We finished it, we built it, we designed it, and we deployed it in-house as a prototype, and it still had at least 6 to 9 months of legal to go through before it went anywhere into deployment. That level of lag between developing a solution and actually having the value provided to our customers was like really stifling. And then, on this side of things, it's very different, right? We can have a solution on the table today. We can have a question having come in yesterday from a client. How do I do this thing? We'll have a solution today, and we'll be able to deploy the solution tomorrow. That's it. This is the triangle, right? We literally go from here to here to here, and we can do that in such a fast pace because that's the way this company is built. That's the way our app is built, and our product portfolio is built around that idea of very fast moving and providing tremendous value as quickly as possible to our customers. Sure, yeah. So I joined in the second week of July, just as we moved into our new office, a beautiful office here. And since then, I've learned that I didn't fully appreciate how intricate restoration is. So, in terms of the trades, what I had imagined restoration contracting was, I always thought it was. I thought all contracting was the same contracting. I didn't realize there was a difference between things. I'd built a house quite literally from scratch, and I just worked with a general contractor. So I didn't realize there was other stuff there. But once I started talking to our clients and realizing like what space they occupy in the service sector for our communities, I realized restoration contracting is a very different field with very different types of people. In my experience, general contractors, they're there for the business, right? They're as you have to be a successful general contractor, you're there for the business. But restoration contractors go into a business where their entire job is helping people, saving people's lives and livelihoods. That's phenomenal. That's just an incredible way of making a living, right? Most of your work comes from saving people's homes from floods, from fires, their belongings and their livelihood from natural disasters that they have no control over. And in my head, that puts you, it's paramedics and firefighters, first responders, and right below them is restoration contractors. What better, what more impactful person can you have than the person who's going to take you back into your home and say, here it is, it's fixed, you're home again. That's wonderful. It's such an amazing piece of the pie that I'd never seen or thought about or experienced. Luckily, knock on wood. But I developed very quickly a completely different understanding about the value of restoration contracting, and that in turn kind of emphasizes my passion to make this value available to them. Right, the solutions they have today don't let restoration contractors get on with the job of doing what they love, which is getting people back in their home. How much time do you have? So, in terms of what the industry lacks right now, there are three big pieces that I can identify. And we know that there are a lot of different solutions that provide different specialized products to address these pieces. But one of the things that I think is really lacking in restoration is a kind of centralized, it's a centralized data set. So we don't really have a great idea how many restoration contracting companies there are. We have estimates, we've run the analytics, we understand kind of broad scale, but we don't really know exactly how many restorations companies there are in the country and around the world, because this is not a US-centric industry, right? There's Australia is a major restoration market. Europe, any civilized area will have a restoration industry of some sort, whether it's marked that way or not. There is a tremendous number of restoration contractors in the world that either don't know that the technology solutions are there for them, for documentation, for job tracking, for CRM, for client relationship management. They don't know these solutions exist for them, and we don't know that they exist, so we can't tell them that these solutions exist for them, right? So there's no real central database that we are aware of that has a tracking of all the restoration contractors in the country. And because of that, we also don't have as much granular understanding of what their pain points are and how they're functioning and how best they can optimize their business to grow and to scale and to provide more value to their community. Right? And that's what we want to help them ultimately do. We want you to grow and scale and provide value to your community, because that's why you got in this business in the first place. Right? Another thing that is majorly lacking, and we've seen a lot of people, talk about AI in restoration, but AI in restoration really doesn't exist yet. And there's a couple reasons I say that. So there is the image recognition algorithms that we see from EagleView and from other vendors who are doing these kind of large-scale imagery for exteriors and Matterports and other vendors like that. They're doing a really great job at volumetric measurement and documenting these things with digital photography. And then they have image recognition things to identify different pieces here and there. But there is a missing link between where we are and a truly AI-powered restoration industry. And the difference is the best analogy I can make to that is the difference between where healthcare was pre-EMR and where healthcare is today after EMR. And the difference, again, this is showing my roots here, pre-EMR, all doctors and all hospitals worked on paper charts, right? If you were a patient that was at one hospital, the only way for a different hospital to get your information is your paper charts had to be either copied and sent over, or they had to be physically handled, picked up, and walked over to the other place. Right? And it was very difficult for that data transfer to happen in a meaningful way. And what happened? What was the result of that? people were misdiagnosed tremendously because the second hospital doesn't have the time to go through 300 pages of previous report in some cases, right? Or if it's an ER visit, you're in a different state, different country, different city even. They don't have your information, so they don't know what you're allergic to. They don't know what you've done before, what procedures you've had. And there was a tremendous amount of not mismanagement, but misinformed management that was happening in healthcare. We are kind of at the same place here in restoration, where there's a lot of data that is available that would help drive business decisions for restoration contractors and for the industry as a whole, but we just don't properly utilize all that data, right? So once that data is available to us, then we can use machine learning models to identify how to optimize these operations that we're doing. For example, in terms of AR, how do we optimize our receivables? Well, at what time should we follow up with the adjusters? And what times do we have to follow up with insurance? How do we identify that this document has enough documentation, right? How do we know that we've reached a burden of proof for this insurance compared to another one? How do we know that this, how can we predict the estimated revenue for this property based on the other information that we have about the property? But more importantly, how can I limit the number of buttons I have to press to execute a task in my application? And today, in restoration, almost across the board, you have to click 20 different times to do just one thing. And that's if you're lucky and the thing is available in your platform, in the program you're using. More likely, you'll have to click through 4 different programs just to get the data you need to make an actionable decision. And that's 20 times 4 different programs, right? What if everything can be done during chat? Like you have a chat bot that's, you ask it a question, say, hey, what is my best performing locality? What is the best area code for me to do business in? What area code have I got the most revenue out of? What job has given me the most revenue? Which one is my top salesman, right? These are analytics that are very easily run if you spend dedicated time to run those analytics, assuming, of course, all your data is in one place. But you don't have clear answers to those things. You don't have clear visibility to your business most of the time, unless you have somebody dedicated to pulling these insights out at all times. Dashboards can only get you so far. You need to be able to ask a question in natural language and get an actual answer out of it. So, yeah, there's two answers to that question. First answer is you would have a tremendous amount of visibility, right? You would be able to ask questions that you don't have to rely on somebody else to go get the analytics. You don't have to rely on somebody else or yourself to have to dig into the data and find out, filter this, do this, whatever. You can just ask the question and say, what is my best performing area code? And now you know that if I'm going to spend money on marketing, I can utilize this data and say, okay, look, this is my best performing area code in terms of my market cap, how much revenue I'm getting, right? I can target my marketing more towards this area than other areas or nearby because I have more referrals in this area. I've done more jobs in this area. People around here know me better. So I should focus around this area. You kind of intuitively know some of those things, being a restoration contractor, physically going to the job, but it's different when it's data. And when the data shows clearly that here you're making 20% more per job, or you've done 20% more jobs in this particular area than others, and this is how much ad spend or marketing spend you've had in this area, right? Or this is how much net revenue you're making in this area compared to a different area, right? These analytics are not something that are just, on the surface. And if you know these things, you can then optimize and start pushing towards those higher margin areas, right? The higher revenue areas. You can go and do more jobs in this type of space. But it opens up the ability, and this is way downstream, of asking the AI questions about how to optimize. And those are two different things. One is just being able to analyze the data, and the second thing is identifying actionable steps that you can take to optimize your business based on the data. And AI is able to do both of those things given enough information. So, for example, today, if you were to go on ChatGPT and put all your data in there and ask it a question, it could probably tell you well enough that, area code, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 has given you this much revenue, and this one hasn't given you that much less revenue. And if you ask it the question, how should I shift my marketing budget to more optimized with the areas that I need to go, need to make more revenue in, ChatGPT could probably tell you that, yeah, you should add more marketing budget to this area and the surrounding 5 area codes, and you can expect X, Y, and Z in the future, and here are 3 different projections to go about it. That is advanced analytics. That is a different level above what even a business analyst would be able to tell you. Somebody who's coaching you through a restoration would probably give you a couple of those things. But to have an AI system that's able to do that at scale, quickly, and without having to pay that much, for it, that's a huge advantage to everybody, right? And that is the kind of technology that would push this whole industry forward together. The conversations we're having internally really revolve around how we can deliver value quickly to our clients, and how we can really get the idea of AI, the way it lives in my head, into the heads of our clients, right? Into the heads of our customers. There's a traditional distrust, as far as I can see it. There's a massive amount of distrust in the public when it comes to AI. A lot of people are worried about AI taking jobs. A lot of people are worried about misinformation coming through AI, it being used for nefarious purposes. And those are all narratives that have some speck of truth to them. Absolutely. You can get wrong information from an AI. You can, somebody who is motivated to do so can use AI for nefarious purposes. But generally speaking, AI is just a tool, just like a wrench is. Could you use a wrench to break in a window? Sure, absolutely. But could you also use it to fix your pipes? Yeah, you can, right? It's a tool. A tool is a tool either way. It really depends on how you utilize it. We are internally having conversations about how best to utilize AI to provide value quickly, so that it starts to gain trust with our customers. And right now, the idea is the kind of suggesting AI, the operationally advising AI that I talked about, is a little bit far afield, right? That's not something we'd be confident putting out in the world right now, because we don't know how accurate it would be for this particular industry. It really requires a lot more like development and research in-house for us to understand what that looks like downstream. But in the near term, being able to execute things like create a project instead of having to go through specific buttons on your mobile app or on the web app, being able to type in create project and having the AI ask you things about the project that are required and creating the project for you. So instead of having to touch buttons, you just type things. You type in the information you need, right? Those things are really helpful. Right, that would limit the amount of time you interact with the software, and it would get the work done at the same time. So it's a win-win. So those are kind of the low-hanging fruit that we're anticipating. But that is also long-term the platform where we would deliver the other part of it, which is advanced analytics. So step 1 is providing command level interaction, being able to offload some of those button presses by talking to AI. Level 2 is getting advanced analytics with AI, again, using that same chat interface, being able to ask questions and get directed answers from your internal data. And level 3, downstream, we imagine it can be a kind of business consultant AI that we utilize the data from that we have internally at Albi on what things work, what things don't work, and help try and optimize business decisions based on that, all of that data that we have in-house. So I haven't talked to customers too much about the AI element. And the main reason for that is there is a clear need. Every time I talk about ChatGPT to any customer, they're like, oh yeah, that's super cool. It just came out of nowhere and it's really awesome. It didn't actually come out of nowhere. It's been in development for almost 10, 15 years. And the fact that it's now in the public zeitgeist, it's in your public vision, automatically it becomes super exciting. And you're like, this is so cool. This is, but it really is how do you use it? The customers I talk to, we talk sometimes about ChatGPT, how we can utilize it. But generally speaking, they are not really aware of AI coming into restoration yet. And I think that's a great thing, right? And there's a reason I say that. It seems counterintuitive, but it's a great thing because when it does come, it should be as seamless as possible. It should feel as though it's magic, but it's magic you don't know why it didn't exist before. Like that's the kind of magic that really makes it like amazing, right? The iPhone is a great example of that. Nobody realized that having a touchscreen phone would be so revolutionary until it came out and people had it in their hands and they're like, oh, this is how it was supposed to be the whole time. And all of competitors that had tactile buttons basically died overnight, right? And why was that? Is because the magic was subtle, but it was transformational. And that's what we imagine is going to happen here. When the interaction changes from button presses to text to chatting, that's going to change the way you interact with the software completely, almost overnight. And we don't really want to influence that metric yet. We don't want to try and push people towards an ideation of how they want it to happen. We want it to seamlessly integrate with their process the way it is today. We're just going to train them how to do it in this new way, and it's going to be way easier for them to do it. So, like I said, it seems counterintuitive, but in my experience, it's the subtle changes and the subtle advancements that really make a huge difference when it comes to the customer experience. Oh yeah, absolutely. So I was talking to the head of product at another AI company that doesn't do AI like in CRM, but they support all of these other major companies like Salesforce, like HubSpot, like Toyota Research, and Tesla train their models. Like they actually work on all that. And he was telling me that a lot of other software companies are doing very similar things to what we've planned. Right? The architecture that I have designed for this is the same one I discussed with him. He was like, most of these people are doing very similar things because it is a really easy way of getting to market with these massive LLM systems that you have no way of training in-house. That would take, $20, $30 million to train in-house. They're already done, they're already trained. You don't really have to do too much work to them, but you can apply them directly to your product very simply using these steps. So a lot of people are doing what we are trying to do, and they're doing it in very similar ways, but it doesn't really matter what technology is underneath because all of that is kind of the same. There's a little tweaks here and there. What really matters is what value you provide in how you deploy it. It's not like the mechanics of deploying it, it is the experience of deploying it. So I know for a fact Salesforce has developed their own AI to do some of that stuff, right? So if you use Salesforce, my understanding is that the AI will be able to identify specific customers and suggest ways of talking to them or suggest solutions for their problems when they come in through the ticketing, or suggest the next time you should talk to them and things like that. Like it's meant to do a lot of the CRM work, right? The actual hard work. And I think that's fantastic. That's super cool. But is that directly necessary in our field? I don't think so. Not necessarily, not right now. What our uses are completely different. We really have to track jobs, track our COGS, track our expenses, and make sure that we are, maximizing the revenue for each job by optimizing how we handle the job and making sure our revenue is coming in with our AR, right? So that's really our application of AI. That's different. So to answer your question, yes, absolutely. A lot of other people are doing it. Are they doing the same way we are? Absolutely. Mechanically speaking, we are all doing the same exact mechanical process underneath, but how we apply it is completely different. It really comes down to what is your customer's actual value need, right? That's what you have to optimize for. That's what you have to design for, and that's what we're doing differently. Exactly. That's exactly my intuition, and I think everybody in the tech space right now is feeling the same way. It's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Yes, you should be applying AI into your software, right? But the reason we are not going gung-ho towards AI and letting other things fall off is because we recognize the value we're providing to our customers doesn't hinge on AI. Right? And if you have a good idea of the value you're providing to your customers, how you're providing it, and why they find it valuable, then you can prioritize the features first that matter to them more than trying to jump on the bandwagon of AI. We know it's coming and we know how we're going to apply it. But the question is, do we want to spend the time to do it right now, or are there more important things that we want to address first, lock down, make sure this experience is very crisp and clean, and then we'll start pushing over on this in this direction. So a lot of other companies don't do that. And I don't mean in restoration, I mean in general in tech. I've seen a lot of companies, especially healthcare companies, they're jumping into the AI bandwagon like head first, because they expect that this is their competitive advantage. They're going to do something massive, and truth be told, 95% of them are not going to be changing the world with their AI tech. They're kind of just pushing the yardstick a little bit, which is great, good for them, but it's a tremendous amount of work to push that yardstick just a little bit, right? You could have achieved way more returns, you could have provided way more value to your customers by addressing your core problems, right? To actually provide value to your core problems. And that's the biggest psychological shift that I'm trying to avoid as we move forward into this new AI age, is avoiding that trap of getting stuck trying to chase the AI, bug right now. But first, instead of doing that, addressing core problems, addressing core features, making sure we're solving our customers' actual pain points first, and then making it easier to do using AI, as opposed to rely on AI as the be-all, end-all, as it seems people are doing. So right now we have a large portion of our clients are doing water mitigation jobs, and they use our dry book. And the consistent complaint is that the dry book is not up to par. So we've decided to completely scrap the dry book, the old dry book, and build it up from scratch in, I think, one of the biggest overhauls to any one of our systems in the history of Albi. It's a tremendous undertaking. Our dev team has done a great job with it, but that's one of the biggest things that we are working on, and we will be releasing very soon. Right after that, in our roadmap is to reconstruct our financial platform, how we integrate with QuickBooks. We have new integrations with Xero, which is another accounting software for the European market, but how we integrate with financial software is now going to change. It's going to become much more reliable in terms of the connection sync inwards and outwards, and it's going to be much more modular. So we can control how things are coming into Albi, how we track financials in Albi, how we report financials out of Albi. All those things will be controlled, as opposed to relying on an external source to do financials. We'll be able to collaborate with an external source to do financials, which makes Albi in general a much better platform for it. So those are the two big things that are coming in the very near future, which I'm really excited about. And then, of course, downstream, we have we're just working on the idea yet. We still have a ways to go on it, but we are planning to introduce communications into the platform. So device-specific or platform-specific communications, you'll be able to call in and out of the Albi app to customers and take calls from customers on your mobile device and your web device using the Albi app. So we want to get rid of company phones. That's the big goal. Because company phones are this extra burden every restoration company has. You pay a ton of money for, and you end up having to hope you get it back from your employee if they ever do leave you. In this case, it's simple. It's just an entitlement. We flip a switch on Albi's side. The user is able to make and take calls directly from their Albi device. But that is, again, a little bit further afield. That is a great question. Albi in the next 5 years, I think in the next 2 years we will be industry leading. And the reason I say that is because it feels like a lot of the restoration industry is kind of sitting on its laurels, right? It's just kind of relaxed. It's a lot of the industry feels, in my experience, a lot of the industry feels as though the software solutions they've provided to the industry are good enough, and nobody's complaining enough about them to do actual dev work and make it better, right? And I hate that. Personally, I really don't like that, because I've seen that happen many times. In healthcare, also, it happens all the time. Somebody creates a project and they're like, this is the way it is. I'm not going to change it. I don't care what you have to say about it. But we don't do that here at Albi. We change, we listen, we accept the opinions of others, and we make sure we optimize our platform to work in the most optimized way for everybody in restoration. Whether that means that you have to change your process to be more optimized in order to use Albi, or vice versa, if Albi has to change to be more optimized based on something that you've decided or you've learned that you're teaching us. And both of those things are fantastic. But it seems like most of the industry is not doing that. So I think in the next 2 years, we'll become industry leading. We will be the best platform for restoration in the industry with no exceptions. But in the next 5 years, the real question is, what do we provide to restoration that we can provide to the other trades as well? Restoration for us is kind of a nucleus. This is where we really shine. This is our specialization. But there are a tremendous amount of horizontal analogs to what we do in restoration, right? So what do I mean by that? Roofing has a lot of overlap with restoration. Plumbing has a lot of overlap with restoration. All of the trades really have a lot of overlap with restoration. And it just so happens that if we really provide a tremendous amount of value for this market, I also feel we provide a tremendous amount of value for other markets because of the way we built this platform. Right? If we're growing from the inside out, we then can address different trades with the same efficiency as we've addressed the restoration trade. So my vision for the next 5 years is that we won't just be serving restoration, even though that would be our core business is restoration. We will be able to serve all of the trades with our platform with trade-specific tweaks, right? Roofing is going to need different things, plumbing is going to need different things, trade-specific tweaks, but the core of the platform will not change. It will still be project-centric, it will still be restoration-specific. This core will not change. No, I think you're very thorough, and I appreciate that. Overall, I think that I'm generally speaking, I'm a very optimistic person. I always feel that we're heading towards a brighter future for everyone. And I like to, whenever I talk to any customer, I feel that they feel the same way, which is really, I find pleasantly surprising in this industry compared to others that I've experienced. Healthcare, for example, obviously is almost always pessimistic on purpose, right? Everything's about being sick. And that's not a great place to like mentally think about the future. But here in restoration, everything seems to be optimistic. Even though we're fixing post-damage, we're fixing after a catastrophe, we are fixing. We're always moving upwards. We're always moving forwards. And we're always improving everything that we touch as we move forwards in life. So I find that pleasantly refreshing. And I can't think of a group of people I'd want to serve more than restoration contractors. I find that this is a really tremendous customer base to work with, and the friends I don't know if I can call them friends because we haven't made that official or anything. But the friends I've made along the way so far, and it's only been a couple months, they have been really mind shift changing, or mindset changing, I should say. And I find that really transformational. I find that very exciting. Cons with AI. I mean, there are a tremendous amount. Obviously, AI could kill us all. Absolutely. So one of the things around AI that I find fascinating, one of the applications of AI I find fascinating is biotechnology. AI is really good at identifying patterns, just like humans are. Humans are we're naturally wired to identify patterns. AI is just way better at doing that at scale. And AI right now is able to identify viruses and identify drugs much faster than human researchers have been able to. And because of our new biotech tools, we're able to assemble these things more accurately as well, right? We can almost at the atomic scale assemble viruses, assemble drugs. That is the most dangerous part of AI on the broad scale. And I know you asked like a more specific question, but that is my biggest fear in the world, is that we're going to have bad actors at some point that decide to use AI for something like that. And it can be very well used like that. That's absolutely a possibility. The problem is most people don't want that to happen, right? There is no benefit to that. And there are a majority of people that are going the other way, which are they're using AI to help discover therapies against viruses, to discover therapies against diseases. That's what they spend all of their time on, right? So the biggest risk for me right now for AI is bad actors. Generally speaking, AI sentience is not. I wouldn't be worried about that, to be honest. That's not something to worry about for a very long time, because if we as a civilization collapse, AI has nothing to hold it up, right? The infrastructure is not built so that robots can just automate everything. Everyone collapses if that's the case. So that's not something to worry about for the next at least 100 years.